You say that for the past 40 years, Woodstock has been the elephant in the room of your life.
Yes, indeed. Very hard to get away from.
And why is that? Because no matter what you do, people will say Woodstock when they hear your name?
Yeah, because it's such an iconic event, and because I'm so closely associated with it, and because I was in the film, I get recognized a lot, and it's just every day I run into it in one way or another.
They even found a guy who looks like you for the Ang Lee film.
They did.
Taking Woodstock. And Richie Havens said in a recent article that everything in my life and so many others is attached to that train, the Woodstock train.
It seems true of many people that they mark their lives from that point.
Well, Henry, how important do you think the photos in the movie are or were in making Woodstock into that kind of defining event?
Yeah, I mean, they brought it to, a lot, to the whole generation, more than just the 500,000 people that were there. So certainly, they've helped a great deal. A lot of kids that weren't there are very curious about it and want to know about it, of course.
You're perhaps best known for being the man who organized Woodstock, but it wasn't your first foray into concert promoting.
No, I had done a festival which was inspired by Monterey in Miami a year before called Miami Pop at Gulfstream Park, and that was kind of the seed for Woodstock.
You also say that your initial idea came from weekly outdoor shows called the Saturday Standouts?
No, they were called Soundouts, and they took place on a little farm just outside of Woodstock. I'd moved there that summer, and was just the best thing I'd ever experienced musically. I mean, being on a farm out under the stars, bucolic setting, listening to amazing music. Most of the talent was local, but we were in Woodstock, so locals Van Morrison, and it's the Blues Magoos, Ellen McElwain, Richie Havens. Amazing shows. And
well, Woodstock was known for all the music. That Bob Dylan lived there.
Yes,
the band had just had released their first album, Music from Big Pink, which was a house in Woodstock.
Yep.
Albert Grossman was just down the road in Bearsville. There was a recording studio there.
Not yet.
That came after
That
Woodstock?
came after, yeah.
No, but you said you moved there from Miami, and you grew up in Bensonhurst.
Yes, I did. And I moved there from Coconut Grove. I had a head shop in Coconut Grove, and then started producing concerts. And then
a head shop led automatically to producing concerts?
It was just a part of the culture that I was sort of immersed in at the time. And it did very directly lead to concerts, because we promoted free concerts in the park at first, and then Rick O. Feldman, now O'Barry, and I produced the Miami Pop Festival together.
Because we had Fillmore, that was a theater. Mm-hmm. The Beatles performed at Shea Stadium.
Yep.
Those all seem a lot more manageable than the sort of thing that you're talking about.
They were. I mean, the Miami Festival was manageable. It was at Gulfstream Park. It was a fixed facility. It rained like hell the second day, but still, it was easier to deal with. But experiencing the Soundouts in Woodstock really inspired that idea of coming out to the country, away from our everyday lives, and creating this space that we could own.
Well, yes, I had gone from a career as a folk singer in the early 60s to photographing all my friends, who were Neil Young and Mama Cass and David Crosby and Stephen Stills. So I was doing album covers in L.A., and I'd just done the Crosby, Stills, Nash album cover sitting on the old couch. Mm-hmm. And I got a call one day from Chip Monk, my old pal from the folk days, and he said, we're gonna have a huge concert out here this summer. In a couple of weeks, you ought to be out here. And I said, well, who do I talk to? And he said, well, I'll talk to the producer. And the next day, Michael called and said, Chip says we need you out here. So he sent me a ticket. When I got there, they were just building this huge wooden deck, at the base of this hill of green alfalfa. And it was very much like an aircraft carrier. It was just a huge deck of this brand new planks of lumber. And there were all these hippie carpenters, with their shirts off and long hair, sawing and hammering and working like crazy. And, that went on for a couple of weeks, and it was kind of like summer camp. I kind of forgot there was going to be a festival until a couple days before the festival. It was about 100 people sitting out on that hillside. And I said, well, what the heck are they doing? Oh, yeah, that's right. There's going to be a festival.
Well, they showed up early.
They did. And then the next day there were like a few thousand, and then the next day a few 100,000.
But you were there to witness the fact that this was a rather desperate, last-minute kind of thing.
Yes.
Was there a feeling that it might not be completed in time?
No, not really. I think everyone was hoping for the best, and working at full speed. And they almost made it.
We did. We got most of it done.
Now, you had, as you said, your original intention was to hold it in the real Woodstock.
Yes.
Because it was the home of that music scene, and also, I'm assuming, the politics of the town.
It wasn't so much the politics of the town. I was living there. It had a thriving music scene, and really the name really said what we wanted to say about the event. And unfortunately, we couldn't find any place big enough in Woodstock.
It was just that because there had to be a lot of resistance everywhere to the idea of suddenly, whether it turned out to be as big as it did, it still was going to be a huge event.
Yeah.
A lot of people invading some of these small towns.
It's true. But the resistance in Woodstock took place after we decided we weren't going there. Nobody really knew about it until we started to look for sites beyond Woodstock. And we found a site in Wallkill, which is kind of the history, and wasn't ideal, but we settled on it because we were getting desperate and it was available. And worked there for several months, and then...
That fell through?
That fell through. The town turned completely against us, passed a law forbidding the festival.
And what were they afraid of? Just the invasion of hippies?
Yeah, they were afraid of all these freaks that were going to come up and rape their women and steal their cattle, and all the typical taboos of the era. There was a huge generation gap in the 60s, and people were very afraid of our generation.